Madam Chair, I speak in strong opposition to this bill. There's so much that I believe is wrong, so much that is not necessary, much of which has already been addressed by my colleagues who have already spoken. You know, a week ago today in our public hearing, for more than 19 hours, we heard from 288 people who are all strongly opposed to this bill, except for 4 people who spoke in favor. However, we also had the published notice of the debate that was going to be limited to 24 hours in what can only be described for me as an abuse of power and, most disturbingly, the silencing of voices. And it most certainly had a chilling effect on the number of people who came out to testify, as people who I spoke to said they did not want to be denied the chance to speak because the time ran out. And we saw that exact scenario play out in the public health hearing that was taking place concurrent with our hearing last week. Limiting public participation is fundamentally wrong on every level. And the 3,300 pieces of written submitted testimony, also larger in favor, I believe is highly representative of the concerns of our homeschooling families, and also represents a fraction of that group that did not come out here to testify in person. Those that did come out to testify brought their children, some of whom also testified, and also demonstrated very clearly how well their children were being educated. They stayed until 4:45 a.m. the following morning to be heard. Today, many of these parents and their children are here again in this meeting room as we take final committee action on this bill today. I thank you. I extend the thanks to each parent, each child who is here today to advocate for your rights, for your way of life, for protecting your freedoms. Thank you for showing up last week, listening to the voices of the people we represent, regardless of their political beliefs, their skin color, their religious beliefs, or any other identifier, is at the very core of our responsibilities as legislators. Your voices inform us and should be guiding us on the decisions that we make. We all understand that some terrible things have happened in recent times to children in Connecticut. These stories are painful and they are tragic. And somehow, with the provisions of this bill, responsibility and the cause for these tragic events is now focused and blamed on homeschooling families and their children, along with the need for immediate reforms. I, too, question the notion that homeschoolers homeschool so that they can hide their child. What about the child who is in a public school, who is abused daily by their parent, gets on the bus in the morning, goes home on the bus in the afternoon, is home all weekend and all summer, who is hidden in plain view because their abuse never reaches the threshold of being reported? Any parent can hide a child if they truly want to do so. And the tragic events that we saw are evidence of that. We also have a flawed study from the University of Connecticut with questionable data at best and what I will call questionable analysis that was used to craft parts of this bill. We have the child advocate stating in her written testimony, which is available online, that Matthew Tradato, who died at the hands of his mother, was not removed from school for homeschooling. But yet this was largely the basis for the child advocate's recommendation for the need for regulation of homeschoolers. I have to question why. The child advocate also stated publicly yesterday to me in a hearing that she agrees the real cause of these tragic events is a catastrophic failure of the Department of Children and Families. You can go watch her say it yourself on CTN and watch the executive nominations hearing from yesterday. So all of this begs the question, why would we want DCF to be involved at all in the monitoring or regulation of homeschoolers when the agency has demonstrated they cannot handle the cases they are already monitoring? Now, in fairness, there is a new interim commissioner heading up DCF, and I am hopeful that she will right the ship, as we say, and return the agency to a level of quality and performance that protects all children proactively and with fairness. We also heard many times that there was a work group to study homeschooling. Quite honestly, unless I missed something, and I'll freely admit that if it's proven to me, I'm still unaware of what legislators were part of that group. I've yet to interact with a single homeschool parent who was part of that group. And as the ranking senator on this committee, I'm unaware of an invitation to be part of this group. We had approximately 3,300 pieces of written testimony submitted in opposition to this bill. Yet here we are taking final action on this bill that will most likely move out of the committee today and to the clerk of the House. We have also heard from many legislators, but I'm compelled to take a little bit of time, not a lot, it's only 2:40 in the afternoon, to share some of the written testimony that we never heard. Some of you might be in this room right now, and if it's you, if you want to give a wave, a silent wave, then please do so. For example, what does equivalent instruction actually mean? If, as a legislator, you cannot define this, then passing this bill should not even be considered. The problem with creating a bill that requires equivalent instruction to that of public schools completely disregards the real problem. There are many reasons why so many families choose to withdraw their children from the public school system or have chosen to never enroll them. Another piece of testimony. As a homeschool parent myself, I stand with the hundreds of parents who made their voices heard at last week's public hearing. It is unconscionable to me that despite the hundreds of verbal testimonies and thousands of written testimonies that were submitted and were overwhelmingly in opposition to this bill, it is still being considered by the committee at all. I want to remind each of you that you represent the people of your respective district, not a political party, so represent them well and kill this bill. Another piece of testimony. As a parent who chooses to send my child to a private Christian school, I can attest that our academics are more rigorous and the grades more difficult to achieve than those of public school. I have met other parents that have told me when their children moved from public school to our private school, they had trouble at first keeping up with our high standard of academics. This is not equivalent instruction. This is better instruction on purpose. We specifically send our students to a private school in order to promote greater achievement and to eventually become positive contributors to our community and society. And two more actually. As written, the bill raises significant concerns and in my view will not effectively address or prevent child abuse in Connecticut. Instead, I encourage the committee to focus its efforts on strengthening and improving the Department of Children and Family systems where meaningful reforms could have a more direct impact. Law-abiding homeschooling families should not be subject to unnecessary additional regulation. During the public hearing, it was mentioned that this bill was modeled after policies in New Hampshire and Vermont. Notably, both states have recently moved toward reducing restrictions on homeschooling. I urge you to consider this trend and work to keep homeschooling accessible and supported in Connecticut. And then the last one. Dear CGA Education Committee members, we call BS on HB 5468. Even my 9-year-old, who composed her own email to our representative, can see through this. She wrote, "Mommy, why do they want to make things so much harder for us? Why do they want to take away our freedoms?" Honestly, ask yourself, how is this bill even remotely justified? It is not necessary, it's not practical, it's not wanted. And I think maybe they're in the room. It said, you will see me in the meeting today, Wednesday the 18th. If you're here, give a little wave. If not, don't worry about it. Lastly, in closing, I appreciate and respect the comments made by Representative Felipe and Representative McGee and their concern about the politicalization of this bill. It is a fact that during the public hearing, we most certainly heard from homeschool families who shared their political affiliation with us, Republicans, Democrats, unaffiliated. It's a fact that we heard from people of all colors, religious backgrounds, and varying beliefs. Earlier in this meeting, the good House Democratic co-chair of this committee stated she is the person that proposed and introduced this bill. It is also a fact that the original decision to limit the debate to 24 hours and potentially silence the voices of people were made by the Democratic chairs of this committee. All facts. SB 220, which is on our agenda today and we voted out of this committee, was a collaboration between Representative Leeper and I in the interest of supporting student literacy. I sit here today and say that I've had a great working relationship over many years with the Senate Democrat co-chair of the committee, Senator McCrory. He and I were elected to the Senate on the same day in a special election in 2017. We have worked together over time to bring what I believe is some common sense, some compromise, and certainly some policy ideas that were largely amenable to both parties. Bipartisanship is most certainly possible. And despite this, sadly, and not yet a fact, but highly likely, the vote that will occur momentarily will largely fall on party lines. Let's do what's right and stop this bill right now. The voices of the people have been heard. Vote no. Thank you, Madam Chair.